Neo-Nationalism, Zionism. Communism or Marxism has been described as international Judaism, whereas Zionism is national Judaism. Through these two ideologies, extreme wealthy elements within Judaism have influenced the geopolitical landscape over the past 150 years towards modern globalization. Harry Wotton, a Russian-born American rabbi, Kabbalist, and philosopher, once wrote, "The communist soul is the soul of Judaism." He also commented in his book, A Program for the Jews and an Answer to All Anti-Semites, that it is not an accident that Judaism gave birth to Marxism, and it is not an accident that the Jews readily took up Marxism. All this was in perfect accord with the progress of Judaism and the Jews. Rabbi Stephen Wise, a Reform rabbi and Zionist leader, wrote in 1935 that some call it Marxism, but I call it Judaism. Previous videos have pointed out the link between religious Judaism and the planet Saturn, aligning many of their beliefs and philosophies with the astrological energetic characteristics of this enormous outer planet. And because both communism and Zionism stem from the same source, their influence upon society both share a Saturnian disposition. You don't need to be a Jew to be a Zionist, and you don't need to be a Jew to align yourself with Saturn's energetic characteristics. It is a mentality towards materialism, placing the materium over spiritual matters. The true foundation of Judaism is a philosophy, not just a religion, a philosophy rooted in the materium. This is reflected in the glyph and dynamics of the planet Saturn, the cross of the materium over the crescent of spirituality. Therefore, anyone who promotes material matters over spiritual ones can be classed as following the basic philosophy and principles of Judaism. Harry Wotton also writes, "But Jehovah comes down from heaven to dwell on this earth and to embody himself in mankind. For this reason, Judaism concerns itself only about this earth and promises all reward right here on this earth. The kingdom of God is to be realized right here on this earth. The immortality which men are to enjoy, they will enjoy right here on this earth. God assumes his holiest name, Jehovah, only on this earth, and when embodied in man. This is the reason why Jehovah promised to give this earth an eternal inheritance to those that will identify themselves with Jehovah. All that identify themselves with Jehovah are Jews. They are the children of Jehovah. This is the soul and essence of Judaism, and this is the soul of the Jews. Many religious scholars throughout history have suggested that Jehovah or Yahweh is the Hebrew God of the Old Testament, not the spiritual God of the New Testament. It is necessary, however, for governing systems to rule its subjects and social order with aspects of Saturn's characteristics: order, control, discipline, responsibility, structure, limitations, hard work, and leadership. However, too much of Saturn's influence, over-representing a society's political structure with unlimited satanic energy, can have a detrimental effect on that society's overall happiness and prosperity. With Saturn being the great malefic, a society submerged in satanic energy can become too disciplined and too controlled, with hardships, limitations, and austerity, leading to pessimism, depression, and loss. The vice for Saturn is avarice, extreme greed for wealth and material gain. Therefore, it is imperative for a happy, prosperous, and functioning society to have a more balanced approach towards its allegiance with planetary energies. In the days of old, the gods had the whole earth distributed among them by allotment. There was no quarrelling, for you cannot rightfully suppose that the gods did not know what was proper for each of them to have, or, knowing this, that they would seek to procure for themselves by contention that which more properly belonged to others. Plato's Critias. The Bolshevist revolution in Russia was the work of Jewish brains, of Jewish dissatisfaction, of Jewish planning, whose goal is to create a new order in the world. What was performed in so excellent a way in Russia, thanks to Jewish brains, and because of Jewish dissatisfaction, and by Jewish planning, shall also, through the same Jewish mental and physical forces, become a reality all over the world. This movement among the Jews is not new. From the days of Spartacus Weishaupt to those of Karl Marx, and down to Trotsky in Russia, Bela Kun, Hungary, Rosa Luxemburg, Germany, and Emma Goldman in the United States. This worldwide conspiracy for the overthrow of civilization and for the reconstitution of society on the basis of arrested development, of envious malevolence, and impossible equality has been steadily growing. It played, as a modern writer, Miss Webster, has so ably shown, a definitely recognizable part in the tragedy of the French Revolution. It has been the mainspring of every subversive movement during the 19th century, and now at last this band of extraordinary personalities from the underworld of the great cities of Europe and America have gripped the Russian people by the hair of their heads and have become practically the undisputed masters of that enormous empire. There is no need to exaggerate the part played in the creation of Bolshevism and in the actual bringing about of the Russian Revolution by these international and for the most part atheistical Jews. It is certainly a very great one. It probably outweighs all others. With the notable exception of Lenin, the majority of the leading figures are Jews. You must understand, the leading Bolsheviks who took over Russia were not Russians. They hated Russians. They hated Christians. Driven by ethnic hatred, they tortured and slaughtered millions of Russians without a shred of human remorse. The October Revolution was not what you call in America the Russian Revolution. It was an invasion and conquest over the Russian people. More of my countrymen suffered horrific crimes at their blood-stained hands than any people or nation ever suffered in the entirety of human history. It cannot be understated. Bolshevism was the greatest human slaughter of all time. The fact that most of the world is ignorant of this reality is proof that the global media itself is in the hands of these perpetrators. As the pendulum swings to the left, Marxist ideologies fragment traditional values and social norms, destabilizing communities to a tipping point where resistance is met by communities and nations tired of the Marxist impositions. They beg for a more right-wing, hardline, nationalistic approach to their society's problems. However, the majority of right-wing nationalistic politicians within Western democracies are pro-Zionist, and therefore susceptible to Zionist influence, which, at its apex and root, is run by the same extremes of Saturn's influence as communism was throughout the last century. Although Donald Trump is viewed by many Republicans as their political savior, promoting America first with traditional values and a leaning towards strong nationalism, he is, however, fanatically pro-Zionist. This should ring alarm bells. As president, he cannot serve two masters. He either serves the people of America or the people of Saturn. Is Donald Trump satanic? What I mean by satanic is a disposition or leaning towards the energetic characteristics of the planet Saturn. Saturn is the master of the material realm. Its characteristics include control, order, restrictions and limitations. It is the ruling planet of both Aquarius and Capricorn. The glyph for Saturn is the cross of materialism over the crescent of spirituality. Its north pole possesses a bizarre hexagonal weather pattern, larger than the diameter of the Earth. It has been associated with the number 6 and a black cube for thousands of years. As all the monotheistic religions have singled out a specific planet above all the others, Judaism chose Saturn as their main planet of focus and influence. Consequently, their Sabbath or day of rest is on Saturn's day, and when they pray, they strap one black cube known as a tefillin to their forehead and one to the subordinate arm, wrapping a leather strap like Saturnian rings around the arm, to the hand, and around the middle Saturn finger. On June the 6th, 1966, Donald Trump's grandmother, Elizabeth Christ Trump, founder of E. Trump & Sons real estate business, died, leaving her fortune to her family. According to the New York Times, Donald Trump was a millionaire by the age of 28. This wealth, together with trust funds set up by his father, made Donald Trump a very wealthy man. With his money and background in real estate, Trump set about building the Trump Tower, a 68-story skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. This building became the headquarters of the Trump Organization, with a design reflecting various aspects of Trump's personality. When analyzing Donald Trump's past, it appears that he has a curious interest in the number 6 and black cubes. Although the official height of the Trump Tower is 202 meters or 664 feet, it may be worth verifying this with an independent reading. Trump's personal quarters, together with his penthouse, occupies the 66th to 68th floors of the tower. On the front of the building is a set of what can only be described as black cubes, placed in rows of 6 by 6 by 6, a design expressing the occult energetic characteristics of the planet Saturn. Down the street at 666 Fifth Avenue is another building formerly owned by members of the Trump family. Jared Kushner, a Jewish-American investor and real estate developer, married Donald Trump's daughter, Ivanka Trump, after her conversion to Orthodox Judaism in 2009. Jared Kushner, a personal friend with long-standing links and family ties to Benjamin Netanyahu, was given the role of senior advisor to the new president. At present, Kushner and KABR are undergoing the construction of a new $666 million tower development at One Journal Square in Jersey City. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. At Donald Trump's inauguration on the 20th of January 2016, he gave an optimistic speech to the world watching. Following his speech were representatives of various religious faiths. First up was the Rabbi Marvin Hayer, followed by Reverend Franklin Graham and Bishop Wayne T. Jackson. While the new presidency developed closer ties to Israel, it was severing ties to some of Israel's neighbors and adversaries. On the 6th of December 2017, Donald Trump announced the United States' recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and ordered the planning of the relocation of the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. On the 21st of August 2019, Donald Trump tweeted a quote describing him as the King of Israel, and that Israeli Jews love him like he is the second coming of God.
We will always stand with Israel first and foremost, so everybody understands that very clearly.
There's nobody on this stage that's more pro-Israel than I am.
When I was a young senator, I say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
The uniform that I wore in the military, unfortunately, was not an Israeli uniform. It was an American uniform.
Israel has always been a strong ally of ours, and I appreciate that. I voted just this week to give money, more money to them through the Iron Dome.
And I made clear to him that his strongest ally in the globe is the state of Texas.
I've always proudly stood by Israel. This is not just the result of my work, but also of my many personal talents and experience.
I will never yield in my support of Israel and that unshakable bond.
And this relationship, from Truman to Trump, is a tradition of supporting Israel deeply. And I think about that every day as I serve as America's Secretary of State.
We stand with the democratic state of Israel. And this is why today I come before you to support the $225 million in additional funding.
We are the most natural of allies. And like Israel itself, that alliance is forever.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was here, she has a very important position on appropriations, which is where this bill of funding for Israel takes place. Lois Frankel is on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Alcee Hastings on rules, but he's our top person, our chairman of the Helsinki. And that's important in terms of anti-Semitism as well as pro-Israel initiatives.
And I've been on both the Foreign Relations Committee for 10 years, and I'm the number 2 person on the Intelligence Committee and been there for 10 years. So I'm not a stranger to this stuff. So
Ted Deutsch is the chair of the Middle East Subcommittee of the Foreign Affairs Committee. The list goes on. Nita Lowey is the chair of the Appropriations Committee, the first woman, and a big supporter of Israel, as you know. Eliot Engel is the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Adam Schiff is the chair of the Intelligence Committee. So we have people very well placed to share our values.
The two most important committees for Israel are Foreign Affairs and Appropriations. And you couldn't have two stronger supporters of Israel, both New Yorkers, than Nita Lowey and Eliot Engel.
And it is our honor to lead the committees that write nearly every piece of legislation that advances the strong U.S.-Israel relationship.
There is tremendous pressure inside the political process to make sure that the voters stay aligned inside either the Democrat or Republican parties. Why? Because both of those parties have been captured by special interests. And there's no more special interest that has any more influence than the pro-Israel lobby.
But it's important that Israel always maintains bipartisan support, especially in the Congress. I've, for my entire life, worked to make sure that anytime an issue of U.S.-Israel relationship comes up, that it's overwhelmingly supported by Democrats and Republicans. For the last 10 years, I've had the chance to do it.
I always included a Republican lead sponsor because the foundation of our relationship must remain bipartisan as it has been for decades.
But if there's one thing that we concur on, whether we be Democrats or Republicans, and we are a bipartisan delegation, we come together in support with our friends, our only true friend in the Middle East, and that's Israel.
I believe Israel should never be a partisan issue. And as long as I'm a United States Senator, I will do everything in my power to ensure broad and bipartisan support.
I want to thank you, Democrats and Republicans, for your common support for Israel, year after year, decade after decade. No matter on which side of the aisle you sit, you stand with Israel.
And as we move legislation, we need all of you to build relationships on both sides of the aisle.
Democrats and Republicans together.
Every candidate for Congress at that time had a pledge. They were given a pledge to sign. And so the pledge had Jerusalem as the capital city, the military superiority of Israel.
American Congress people have to sign this pledge.
Yes.
But we have to make sure that there is security, because that is the first responsibility of any government. It's the oath we take as members of Congress and any of you who are part of any official organization to protect and defend. And we have to make sure that the security of Israel is essential. That is essential to a solution.
I don't believe there is any long-term permanent peace solution, and I think pursuing that's the wrong thing to do.
I believe that every day that we can have stability in that region by supporting the Israelis and making sure they have the weapons and the security that they need with our 100% backing is the way to proceed in the Middle East in regard to Israel.
For as long as I have the privilege of serving in the Senate from New York, I will unflinchingly, unstintingly, and with all of my strength be Shomer Yisrael, a guardian of Israel.
If this capital crumbled to the ground, the one thing that would remain is our commitment to Israel.
As we advance further into this new age of Aquarius, the ruling planet of the age, Saturn, will play a major role in influencing human consciousness and their perception of reality. Humanity will inevitably and progressively display more and more of Saturn's energetic characteristics in their lives and communities.
As we heard, there are people in Sweden who support Israel and have a deep sense of the injustice of the present situation. It's these people who give hope to those who still believe that things will get better here. One of them is Lerner Spectre, a former American who made Aliyah and then 10 years ago, with the help of the government of Sweden, set up a non-denominational institute of Jewish learning with the Greek name of Paideia, here in Stockholm. She believes the current wave of anti-Semitism in Sweden will pass and that Jews have an important role to play in a country undergoing profound change.
I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.